Welcome. My name is Markus Wesaw, and I will be your facilitator for the presentation entitled, What is OSHA? An Introduction to Health and Safety. If you have any questions regarding this material, feel at liberty to contact me using the information provided on the screen. That being said, the majority of the content contained in this video presentation has been provided by OSHA. It is always important to give credit where it is due, and I do appreciate the agency providing resources such as this presentation. Additionally, I have inserted some material to supplement what OSHA has provided in order to further better the overall learning experience for each participant. In the description box, there is a link to the handouts required to follow along with this video presentation. If you have not been able to acquire a copy of the handouts, it is highly recommended that you do so in order to enhance your learning experience. Let's get started with the lesson overview. The overall purpose of this lesson is to provide employees with an introduction to OSHA. This series of video presentations will be comprised primarily of 6 topics. Why is OSHA important to you? What rights do you have under OSHA? What responsibilities does your employer have under OSHA? What do the OSHA standards say? How are OSHA inspections conducted? Where can you go for help? One particular goal of this video presentation series is to provide basic information on OSHA's history and mission, employee rights under the OSHA regulations, employee responsibilities under the OSHA regulations, a very basic survey of OSHA standards, an introduction to the mechanics of OSHA inspections, safety and health resources, and how to file an OSHA complaint. Even though OSHA has had an impact on worker safety and health, significant hazards and unsafe conditions still exist in the United States across workplaces everywhere. Each year, on average, 15 workers die every day from job injuries. Over 5,600 Americans die from workplace injuries annually. Over 4 million non-fatal workplace injuries and illnesses are reported, and the estimated cost of occupational injuries and illnesses are from $145 billion to $290 billion each year for direct and indirect costs. OSHA is a small agency with approximately 1,000 federal inspectors and 1,400 state inspectors to cover about 8 million workplaces. As you can see from these numbers, OSHA cannot be everywhere. That is why it is important for you to know your rights and for employers to be aware of their responsibilities under OSHA. This training presentation will help you know whether your employer is complying with OSHA standards, what rights you have relating to job safety and health, and where you can go if you need help. When you know your rights and when employers act responsibly to prevent hazards, the result will be fewer worker deaths, injuries, and illnesses. Training and education are key in making this happen. I would like you to take a moment and think about when you first heard of OSHA. For some of you, this may be the very first time you have heard of the agency called OSHA. For others, the word OSHA has been heard numerous times throughout your professional career. It is important to understand that the agency known as OSHA is typically associated with very negative connotations. But that is not entirely fair, since OSHA's mission and purpose aims to protect workers from the numerous hazards within the workplace. The agency perhaps is associated with negativity due to the fact that the agency is authorized to cite monetary penalties or fines for safety violations. However, OSHA also provides numerous consultation services, answers questions, provides guidance, and creates references and resources to promote occupational health and safety all across America. Try to maintain a positive outlook about the agency, since OSHA only enforces the law of the land and provides guidance for worker protection. At this time, I would like you to reference handout number 1, which outlines a fatality and catastrophe report from OSHA. It is important to note that a catastrophe under the OSHA definition involves the hospitalization of 3 or more employees from the same event. A fatality, on the other hand, is pretty much self-explanatory, but if this is a new word for you, a fatality means a worker died on the job due to certain workplace conditions or circumstances. I have put an image on the screen that outlines what is commonly referred to as the Fat Cat Report. Additionally, I want you to note a couple of things of interest. Firstly, the company name and company location are clearly identified as well as a description of the incident, including the date. Many people find this type of exposure to be a very negative type of public relations, and, although accidents do occur from time to time, this type of information can be looked up quite easily in the public domain on OSHA's website. Secondly, astute safety professionals will study the Fat Cat Report in order to identify trends and communicate common workplace hazards to employees. Using this information in the form of a case study increases awareness and can promote safety within any workplace. The 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Company fire in New York City killed 146 of 500 employees in one of the worst work-related disasters in our country's history. Factory workers, mainly young female immigrants working long hours for low wages, died because doors were locked and there were no fire escapes. This tragedy outraged the public, who called for safety and health reform. Francis Perkins, who later became the first Secretary of Labor, investigated the Triangle Fire and tried to find ways to prevent future occurrences. Production for World War I caused a crisis in workplace safety and health conditions. The government created a working conditions service to help states inspect plants and reduce hazards. In the 1930s, as part of President Roosevelt's New Deal, additional laws increased the federal government's role in job safety and health. But the federal role was mainly to provide service and information to state governments. By the late 1950s, the federal-state partnership could no longer deal with the growing workforce and increasing hazards. Additional federal laws were enacted, but only covered certain industries. By the 1960s, 14,000 workers died every year, and more than 2.2 million workers were not able to work from injuries and illnesses. OSHA began because, until 1970, there were no national laws for safety and health hazards. Many thought that the only solution was a federal law with the same rules and enforcement for everyone. On December 29, 1970, President Nixon signed the OSHA Act. The U.S. Congress created OSHA under the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, or the OSHA Act. Congress passed a law and established OSHA to assure, so far as possible, every working man and woman in the nation safe and healthful working conditions and to preserve our human resources. This act created OSHA, the agency, which formally came into being on April 28, 1971. OSHA stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, an agency of the United States Department of Labor. OSHA's responsibility is worker safety and health protection. With the creation of OSHA, for the first time, all employers in the United States had the legal responsibility to provide a safe and healthful workplace for employees, and there were now uniform regulations that applied to all workplaces. The OSHA Act is also known as Public Law 91-596. It covers all private sector employees and their workers in the 50 states and all territories and jurisdictions under federal authority. Employers and workers in many fields, including but not limited to manufacturing, construction, longshoring, agriculture, law, medicine, charity, and disaster relief are covered by OSHA. Religious groups are covered if they employ workers for secular purposes, such as maintenance or gardening. We have reached the conclusion of the first part in this series pertaining to what is OSHA, an introduction to safety and health. I look forward to seeing you in the next video presentation. Thank you.